Lots of big breaking news today. We have three top news stories today. We have the army on the streets, and we have schools shutting down, trains shutting down, and over 500,000 people on the streets right now. We also have hundreds of thousands of people without power. We see panic buying. All this is happening in Texas right now, too. And our food supply is under threat. We're seeing food export embargoes happening, food export bans, tariffs happening on food. Countries are making moves to protect themselves from food shortages. So we will get into all this stuff. So make sure you stay tuned. We're going to have a long one today and we're going to hit all these topics. So let's get into the first topic here. All right. The army is on the streets in the UK. You can see here that the army is on the streets to fill positions of over 500,000 people that are on strike right now. And who is organizing these strikes? It's one of these things we keep seeing, these massive strikes. They're happening in the US right now. We'll get to the strikes that are happening in New York City, and people are literally dying from these strikes. All right, very sad stories. But who's organizing all these strikes at the same time on our critical infrastructure? You can see here coming out of Wall Street Silver on Twitter. Go follow me on Twitter if you're not. It says massive protest breakout in London as the UK is rocked by a big day strike for higher wages and against a anti-strike law. Schools are closed, trains at a standstill, and the army has been deployed to replace some of the strikers. And you can see here the streets are filled with people. And here's the article. It says Britain grinds to a halt after 500,000 workers go on strike. Downing Street warned Brits the strike would cause, quote, significant disruption. Thousands of schools have been closed. Around 85% of the schools in England and Wales are said to be affected. 85% of the schools shut down right now, all right? And also, thousands of students have been sent home in Nantucket. Their schools are shut down in Connecticut from a cyber attack. All right, just something I remembered off the top of my head. The Nantucket school system suffered a massive cyber attack, and the kids have been sent home from school this week. All right, just another thing affecting. But 85% of the schools in England and the UK have been shut down, and says most of the trains in England have stopped running, and British nurses are also on strike right now. And it says swaths of office staff are forced to work from home Wednesday as widespread industrial action closed schools and crippled Britain's rail network, while hundreds of members of the armed forces were drafted into cover for strikes at the border as well. All right. So this happened actually a couple months ago in the UK. They were having ambulances short as nobody was able to drive the ambulances in the UK, and they had to get the military in, the army, to drive ambulances in the UK. All right. It's one of these things. Who is organizing these strikes on our critical infrastructure? And the UK has been dealing with these train strikes for months now. These are also happening inside of the United States as well. All right. You can see here that very sad story. Parents seek answer after a baby passes at Mount Sinai during NYC nurse strikes. So New York City is also having massive nurse strikes. Tens of thousands of nurses are not at work, and they're demanding higher pay, which is something I can understand, wanting higher pay. But look at what these strikes are causing. They're causing societal disruptions, and they're causing people to die, sadly. All right. And how can the UK military, all right, one of the most sophisticated militaries in the world, supposedly, part of NATO, close U.S. ally, they are now driving ambulance trucks. They're now filling in for train operators. They're now filling in at the border. All these different things. They're operating inside of Britain's civil society. But new reports and even American generals, all right, this is a quote from an American general saying that the British military is, quote, unable to protect the UK or its allies after years of cut. So they can't even protect themselves internationally, geopolitically, from threats, all right, without NATO, without the U.S. backing them up, because they have cut their military so much, and they can fund all these other countries, but they can't fund themselves. They can't protect themselves internationally, and now the military is being reduced to essentially just filling in civil service jobs. You know what I mean? These people are supposed to be trained to fight trained to defend the country, and now they have to go drive an ambulance, they have to go operate a train, they have to fill in for nurses, they have to fill in at border patrol, all these different things. It's really just the UK military has been decapitated, all right, decapacitated, whatever the word is that you want to use. It has been hit at the knees, and it is no longer the force. The UK military used to be the number one force in the entire world. They used to run everything, used to be the global empire before the United States took over. And this is what they want to do to the United States as well, reduce the United States to UK status and essentially have no global international military power. All right, so let's get into what's happening domestically here. All right, in the United States, Texas is seeing panic buying. They are seeing hundreds of thousands, 350,000. Every time I check it, the number is going up. People are without power right now. This is the latest screenshot I got. 342,000 people in Texas alone without power. And this is due to massive ice storms. All right. Why does Texas keep having all of this winter weather? There's tons of snow on the ground here. Check out this highway in Texas. I-30 near Rockwell and Dallas. All right, Dallas, Fort Worth looks like Colorado right now. All right, there's snow over the ground, ice everywhere, and Texas is not equipped for emergencies like this. They do not have snow plowing trucks. They do not have a whole fleet of snow plowers, all these different things. They are not ready. Their electricity grid infrastructure is not prepared for this. That's why 350,000 people almost are without power. All right, it's probably been colder here. It's probably snowed here in Colorado the past week. It was in the negatives just a couple days ago. It was like negative 10. All right, but there was not mass power outages. It's because Texas is not built for this. Why are they having all of this strange winter weather all of a sudden? Is this geoengineering? Is this weather manipulation? I've covered these topics many times, but I feel like it's one of these things. It's right in front of us, and we really don't. It's just not talked about, all right? It's not talked about. And you can see here people are starting to panic in Texas. You can see this line. The cashier is way up there. Way up there. See? Way up there. People are panic buying, and the shelves are getting empty in Texas. People are buying up all the bread, all the milk, all the eggs, all the staples are gone in Texas right now from this winter weather, and people are lined up, giant lines inside of the grocery store to prepare for this winter weather. All right, it's one of these things. You live in Texas, you don't expect this to happen. There's people getting stuck all over the place. People do not have snow tires. People do not have all weather tires. They don't have studs on the tires. They don't have four-wheel drive. They don't have chains. There's just all these things missing because you live in Texas. All right, you really don't think about it. I lived in Florida most of my life, and it's one of those things you just always think the roads will be cleared. Maybe there'll be some rain, but that's nothing, all right? You can still get through it. And this snow and this ice, you can see here, all right? Main highway shut down. People are just sliding out all over the place. If you're not prepared, you can just get stuck very easily. And here's another shot from this highway here from Reed Timmer on Twitter. And it's just happening all over the place in Texas from this winter weather. All right, here's another shot of a road that's blocked off in Texas, and the grid gets hit hard. All right, it shuts down all the renewables, all the solar gets shut down, all the wind power gets shut down in Texas when there's a winter storm. That's what happened a couple years ago. Is a lot of the renewables were not built to withstand cold temperatures because it's Texas. They're not expecting it, and a lot of them shut down. All right, a lot of the power plants, coal plants, wind generation, solar generation could not keep up with the demand that was needed in Texas, and we saw this happen. All right, and this always happens, this panic buying. We're lucky we don't see people looting right now. All right, we're lucky we don't see that. If you didn't see my video yesterday, throughout the country, especially in Memphis right now, there is mass looting going on. Multiple businesses have been looted. We saw this in Buffalo, New York a couple months ago, and Aldi was looted. All the windows were busted out. All the food was gone, and Aldi was looted. Dollar General was looted in Buffalo. These things could happen. You don't expect it to be the grocery store, but the grocery store could get hit. And even if it's not looting, it could be panic buying like this. This is why you need to be prepared. You need to be stocked up. You need to know how to make your own bread. Do you know how to make your own bread? You can make 3-ingredient bread with flour, salt, and baking powder, baking soda. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. My wife makes it, and I'm pretty sure those are the 3 ingredients you need, and you can make basic bread with that. It won't be the most amazing bread, honey, wheat, fancy artesian bread, but you can make your own bread for cheap if you have these staple ingredients. And people are buying all the bread, but I bet there's still some flour left. I bet there's still some salt left. I bet there's still baking soda left. So if you have these skills, then you can do this stuff yourself, right? You can bake your own stuff, and you don't have to be subject to this panic buying, right? All the stuff that's going on. We're also seeing major food shortage updates, all right? Major fertilizer, one of the top fertilizer companies in the entire world is giving a major warning and saying that this food crisis could get really, really bad, all right? And just another thing too, when Texas can't have these roads cleared, it shuts down all these semi-trucks. I've seen video after video of these massive trucks crashing, all right, because they're not clearing the roads here, and people aren't expecting this in Texas, and this is affecting the supply chain as well. These roads getting shut down and these trucks crashing. But the food supply chain is also at risk. So here's another warning here. You could say, it says, a perfect storm for the whole food system right now. This is one of the world's largest fertilizer companies warns that every country, even those in Europe, are facing a food crisis. So one of the largest fertilizer companies in the world is saying that this is a perfect storm for the whole food system right now. And it is. Fertilizer prices are up over 300%, 400% in some places. Even things just like the black tarp, all right? The weed suppression tarp that farmers use to plant tomatoes, things like that, those prices are up 1,000%. All right, so all these little things, they add up. Drip line is up 200, 300%. All these things are byproducts of petroleum, of oil, and fertilizers. Fertilizer is mostly made from natural gas, liquid natural gas. They convert it into fertilizer, into nitrogen. A lot of fertilizer is just a byproduct of fossil fuels. That's where most of it comes from, all right? Especially the main three, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, that you need to grow everything on Earth. And they're warning that we could see a massive food crisis because fertilizer prices have gone up. Farmers have cut back on the amount of fertilizer they use. They're growing different crops. And we're also seeing countries be a little bit more protectionist, all right? They are starting to implement food export bans. Food export bans, all right? It's one of those things, like, I wouldn't think we'd see this, but countries are starting to get worried. They're starting to say, hey, this is my food. I'm going to save this food. Mexico's doing this. Mexico's implementing a food tariff on the U.S. right now, all right? I'll get to that in just a second. But countries in Europe are also, Eurasian nations are also banning food exports as well. Here's the headline: soaring food prices prompt Eurasian nations to ban food exports. And you can see here on January 20th, the Uzbek agriculture minister announced a 4-month ban on exports of onions after prices doubled in 3 weeks. Countries are also banning potatoes. Other countries in this area as well, like Kazakhstan, different countries are also banning potato exports, Moldova, all these areas as well. And it says, the price of onions have skyrocketed, all right? They used to be one of the cheapest onions in the world, but their prices have skyrocketed, and they're saying this is due to frost and the price of inputs going up dramatically, affecting the cost of everything as well, all right? And you can see here, even Mexico is implementing a tariff on their corn. So Mexico announces temporary 50% tariff on white corn exports, and they've also banned U.S. GMO corn. I'll get to that in just a second. But all corn going out of Mexico now has a 50% tariff on it because they want them to sell this corn in Mexico. They're saying, look, you can sell it internationally. We're not going to implement a full-on ban. But a 50% tariff is drastic. That cuts into your margins a lot. And the price of corn is international market prices. So the farmers really can't do anything. The price is set on international markets. And if Mexico's saying, hey, you got to pay a 50% tariff on top of that, how can farmers really make money selling on international markets? So they're almost forced to sell domestically inside of Mexico, which is a export ban almost in itself. All right. So Mexico's even becoming protectionist in their policies as well. All right. And Mexico just banned GMO corn imports for human consumption from the US. All right. So the US is the biggest GMO corn producer in the world. It accounts for a massive billions of dollars of our agricultural production come from corn, specifically GMO corn. And I'm not even a big fan of GMO products, all right? I would rather eat all organic, all farm stuff, all stuff grown on my farm, organic, non-GMO. But I'm also pragmatic, and I realize that GMO corn does feed the world, and it does feed these animals, and it keeps things going. You can't just get rid of it overnight. And U.S. farmers are worried because the corn market is about $60 billion annually in the United States, and Mexico accounts for around 10 billion of that 60 billion. They buy about 10 billion of it, just Mexico alone, of the U.S. corn every single year. And most of that corn is GMO corn, and Mexico's now saying we will not buy this corn for human consumption. And they're also considering a ban for livestock as well, so they can't even buy it to feed to cows or goats or anything like that. So this could be devastating for international corn markets, international grain markets. We could see prices go down a little bit in the U.S. in the short term, but long term, this could affect yields. Farmers might have to switch over to organic or at least non-GMO, and yields will go down, and then that will cause prices to go up in the long term, most likely. Or farmers will just switch to a different crop and not even grow corn, and we will have a whole different issue. All right, so it's one of these things. This is going to shake up markets. We will have to see what's going on, but countries are becoming more protectionist in their agricultural and food policies. All right, it's just a fact. And even the U.S. Air Force is worried about China taking over our farmland and China having farms close to U.S. bases. All right, so it says Air Force says proposed Chinese-owned mill in North Dakota is, quote, significant threat. So China is trying to buy and build a massive grain mill in North Dakota, 15 miles from this Air Force base. And the Air Force is saying that we do not approve. We do not want you to sell this land and approve this land in North Dakota to be sold to Chinese nationals. All right. And it's a big threat. China is buying up our food, buying up our farmland, and they're also have clandestine operations where they can just say, hey, we're just farming, we're just building a mill. Inside the mill could be spy equipment. Remember all these Huawei transmitters, all right? Just a couple years ago, the Army, Air Force, everyone came out and said these Huawei transmitters are surrounding our bases and they could be intercepting our data. And that's why Huawei was banned in the U.S., this Chinese tech company that creates routers, all the stuff, phone interceptors, all these different things. And they were banned because of the national security threat. But these farms right next to bases could be the same thing. They could just set up this equipment right there 15 miles away in a giant mill, just make it look like a mill and have operations going on. All right. We also saw the FBI raiding a lot of these Chinese police stations recently. There's been these Chinese police stations that have been operating inside the U.S., targeting Chinese citizens that are in the U.S., all right, and kind of keeping an eye on them, making sure they follow Chinese law while they're in the U.S., all right. Very strange dystopian that this was allowed to operate, and a lot of them recently got raided because why is a Chinese police force inside of the United States operating? So it's just another thing that our food supply is under threat as well from these international organizations, these international groups that can just come in, buy up the farmland. It's like Bill Gates being the largest farm owner in America. Why is that? And then if you control the food, you control the population. We see all these shortages. We see all these weird fires, this chicken fire. All right. We see all these engineered crises, and a lot of it's around food, and a lot of it is because we sell out our food supply to international groups that don't have the United States' best interests at heart. All right, so get your own food, get your chicken, start growing food, guys. Get your seeds now. It's already February. It's February 1st. Those seeds are going to be gone by March 1st. People are going to be like, hey, spring's like in a couple weeks. You better get them now. Get your seeds now. Get stocked up. Buy extra. Give some to your neighbor. Give some to your friends. Get your chickens now too. All right, I'm already seeing signs for chickens around me. They're going to have them in Tractor Supply, Murdoch's, Rural King, all that stuff real soon. So get stocked up. Get prepared, guys. Smash that like. Smash that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe. Hit those comments for me too. And I hope you guys have a big old blessed day.